Good evening, folks. Pat Rivard, your integration coach. It's great to be back. Tonight, I want to talk to you guys about something that's quite paradoxical in leadership. In fact, quite counterintuitive in leadership. And what that is the courage to do nothing. There are times in leadership where it's often perceived or misunderstood that as leaders we're doing nothing. And the perception is that if we did more and did something, that things would be a lot better. And I would agree that sometimes that's true, but sometimes doing nothing is misunderstood. And here's what I mean by that. I'll take you back to when I was 19 years old. I was 19, I was working in construction, I just finished playing some hockey, and I was really in search of, what's next for me. I had grown up in a very small town, and I was making some huge money in construction, and I was starting to land on a very comfortable spot where I'm gonna work in construction. Yet there was something inside that I wasn't comfortable with. Something that was tinging inside me, and I was just screaming for some guidance. And at that time, I was working in the same company as my dad, in construction, and I remember just wishing that I would get some guidance from him. And my perception was my dad was doing nothing to support me. Then came the day. I said, I'm really comfortable in this job. I like the money I'm making, and there was a promotion. And the promotion was for me to graduate from being a laborer onto some heavy duty equipment. And I was so excited about that opportunity because that's exactly what my father was doing. He had been able to provide for us as a family for years and years doing so. And I said, this is it. This is where I'm going to land. And I applied for the job, and lo and behold, I did not get it. And I was so devastated and quite angry. I was angry at my father. Like, why wouldn't he do something for me to get that job? I could have trained with him. I could have done a number of things. But, from my perspective, he did nothing. He was quite passive. And little did I know, as we fast forward the tape into my 40s, I was sitting with my mom one night, and I was recalling this instance when I never got this job. And my mom quickly reminded me that at that time, when I was applying for that promotion, my father had actually gone to his boss at that time and said, do not put my son on the grader, because I know that he can accomplish a lot more than working in construction. And I'm so grateful that he had the courage to do that. And felt somewhat guilty in that sense when my mom was telling me that story, because my perception was definitely that he had done nothing to support me at that time. So it's a great example of how sometimes we look at leadership, and in this case was my father, and I wanted him so desperately to do something for me, and the perception was that he was doing nothing, but he had done so much for me at that time. And I'm still grateful for this day, to this day, that he did that. So I want to transition that into the world of education, and to my colleagues who are principals. I remember sitting in your chair as well for 7 years, and I remember the times when staff would often feel like administration wasn't doing anything. And in fact, I would love to hear your stories around how much you did do, and the courageousness you displayed around the concept of doing nothing, and actually you were actually courageous in doing something. And for me, that can be a number of things as a principal. I mean, you could be supporting a child when there's enormous pressure on the system to get rid of a child. And it appears on the surface that we're doing nothing, but man, I know the endless hours it takes to support children who are struggling in their learning, or struggling in life in general. And we're working behind the scenes to support them. And yeah, you are doing a ton, but sometimes it's not perceived that way. And to my colleagues who are teachers, how many times is it perceived by parents at times because they're stressed about their own children's learning, and they feel like you're not doing enough or you're doing nothing. When in fact we know that you're sitting in your own courage and spending endless hours differentiating a lesson plan, or spending time during your breaks or after schools, just really encouraging students to be the best they can be. But yet you're often criticized for not doing enough or doing nothing. And so the courage to do nothing at times is absolutely very difficult to understand, and it is often so misunderstood. The reality is there is lots being done, and really it just comes down to some really good communication and really understanding that sometimes there's lots being done, but it's often misunderstood. I would love to hear your stories around the courage to do nothing. It's something I'm quite interested in. So please email me or comment right on LinkedIn, or email me at leadership@integration.coach. That's at leadershipintegration.coach. I'd love to hear your stories around this topic. I'm going to be blogging on it, so please provide me your stories. And I hope your Sunday night's treating you as well as it's treating me. I'm signing off for now. Pat Rivard. See you.